Power has always had one goal: control. Whether it's over land, wealth, people, or information, the ones who rise to the top never stop looking for ways to tighten their grip. And long before governments were organized, before laws were written down, before money was standardized, there was belief. Belief in the unknown, in something bigger, something no one could prove, but everyone was taught to fear or obey. When people lived in tribes, survival was everything. Food, shelter, protection, these were all matters of life and death. And the more people stuck together, the safer they were. But people need reasons to follow, reasons to submit. And nothing motivates like fear, especially fear of things you can't see, can't touch, but are told rule your fate. That's the seed of religion, not born out of truth, but out of utility. The earliest rulers weren't politicians. They were priests, shamans, prophets, anyone who could speak with authority about the skies, the crops, the plagues, the sun. They saw that people would rather follow a confident lie than live in confusing truth. And so they began to shape the unknown into stories. Those stories became rules, and those rules became the foundations of organized religion. Think about how every major religion somehow benefits a ruling class, how it tells people to submit, to be humble, to suffer without complaint, how it blesses poverty and warns against questioning authority. The king rules by divine right. The priest speaks for the gods. The people are told that to rebel is not only a political crime, but a spiritual one. Convenient, isn't it? In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh wasn't just a king. He was a god on earth. That belief wasn't based on evidence. It was constructed, carefully, over time, reinforced through temples, rituals, and punishments. The same thing happened in Mesopotamia, in the Incan Empire, in the Roman Empire. Religion wasn't separate from power. It was the source of it. And when empires expanded, religion expanded with them. Not because it was true, but because it was useful. Roman emperors realized that keeping their people united under a single religion made ruling easier. That's why Constantine made Christianity the state religion, not out of divine inspiration, but because it was politically smart. Religious doctrine has always been edited by people who had something to gain. The Council of Nicaea didn't just define Christian beliefs. It deleted the ones that challenged Rome's authority. Scriptures were selected, others discarded, not based on divine truth, but on control, on politics, on influence. Look at the way religion handles women. Most major religions have teachings that keep women in a lower status. That isn't a divine mistake. It's by design. Because male leaders didn't want to share power. They wrapped patriarchy in scripture, told people it was holy, and punished those who questioned it. That's not enlightenment. That's oppression dressed in robes. The more you study religion's history, the clearer it becomes. It's not a pure search for meaning. It's a tool for maintaining systems. Systems that benefit a few and suppress the rest. It tells people to accept inequality as fate, to obey, not to think, to sacrifice, not to question. That doesn't happen by accident. It's strategy. In medieval Europe, peasants worked the land, starved in winter, and died young. But they were told their suffering was sacred, that heaven would reward them. Meanwhile, the church collected taxes, built cathedrals, and lived in luxury. The gap between words and actions couldn't have been wider. But questioning the church meant excommunication, or worse. So people stayed quiet, out of fear, not faith. Even the concept of sin is a form of control. You're told you're born broken, that your thoughts are wrong, that your desires are dangerous, and that only the religious leaders can save you. That's not moral guidance. That's psychological manipulation. It creates guilt. It creates dependence. It makes sure you never feel truly free. In many parts of the world, religious leaders have more influence than elected officials. They can decide what people wear, what they read, who they marry, how they think. And they do it under the banner of morality, when in reality it's about obedience, about ensuring no one steps out of line. Even today, when science has explained so much, religion still resists. Not because the evidence isn't convincing, but because evidence isn't useful to those in charge. Blind belief is easier to manage than critical thinking. And so, they fight to keep old ideas alive, not because they're true, but because those ideas protect the hierarchy. Every time a child is told not to ask questions about their faith, that's not spirituality. That's indoctrination. Every time someone is shamed for their identity in the name of religion, that's not righteousness. That's control. Every time a country censors speech, bans books, or criminalizes dissent using religion as the justification, it becomes clear who really benefits from these beliefs. There are over 4,000 religions in the world today. They all claim to be true, but they contradict each other. If one is right, the others must be wrong. But what if none of them were true? What if they were all created by different groups of powerful men in different eras, all trying to answer the same question in a way that kept them on top? Power doesn't need truth. It needs belief. It needs rituals. It needs stories that sound ancient and sacred but are built to serve modern interests. The story of religion isn't a divine message passed down through the clouds. It's a system that evolved, generation after generation, to serve those who claimed to speak for the divine. Religion teaches people to wait for justice in the next life, while accepting injustice in this one. It teaches the poor to stay poor, and the abused to stay silent. It teaches people to blame themselves for their suffering, and to fear asking why. That's not faith. That's social engineering. You don't need a divine command to treat people with kindness. You don't need scripture to tell you that violence, hate, and inequality are wrong. Human empathy existed long before religion, and often, religion has gotten in the way of it. Wars have been started in its name. Genocides, slavery, colonization, all justified with holy texts. When you strip religion of its rituals and symbols, what you're left with is a hierarchy. At the top, those who claim to know the will of a god. At the bottom, those told to obey it. That's not spirituality. That's a power structure. The truth is, you can live a full, moral, meaningful life without following a book written thousands of years ago by men who thought the sun revolved around the earth. You can be kind without being obedient. You can seek truth without submitting to fear. You can be free without needing permission from a priest or a prophet. The question isn't whether religion once served a purpose. Maybe it did. Maybe it brought some order to chaotic times. But the real question is, who did it serve? Who wrote the rules? Who enforced them? And who still benefits today? Because when you really look at it, religion wasn't created to save your soul. It was created to keep you in line. And the ones who built it, they weren't saints. They were strategists, builders of systems, protectors of power. And maybe the most liberating thing you can do now is stop playing a game that was never built for you to win.